The Graveyard Hotel. Written by Charles Swain. Narrated by Vince V. High above the realm, seated at the great round table of the Zodiac Kings, Gemini watched. His golden armor glimmered faintly in the dim candlelight of the hall, though his eyes, usually filled with warmth, were shadowed by something colder. The other kings murmured in low voices, but Gemini paid them no mind. His gaze remained fixed on the swirling orb before him, a window into a new dream. The orb flickered, rippling with mist, before settling on an image. A small, forgotten town, half buried in dust and whispers. The streets were narrow, winding, and the buildings sagged beneath the weight of age. But beneath it all, hidden from the world above, was a place spoken of only in hushed tones: the Graveyard Hotel. It wasn't a name born of clever marketing or eerie charm. It was literal. A hotel buried underground, its corridors winding like a crypt. The locals never spoke of it directly. They only muttered about the poor souls who entered and never emerged. The dream formed fully now. Inside, the air was damp and stagnant. Candles burned low in rusted sconces, their wax dribbling down the walls like old blood. The ceiling was low, oppressive. It felt more like a tomb than a place meant for rest. There were rules. Everyone who entered knew them, or soon would. The first rule: give the spider a coin. It wasn't an ordinary spider. It hung in the center of the lobby, massive and unmoving, carved from blackened iron. A human skull was set into its abdomen, the jaw cracked open just wide enough to slip a coin through. Each guest was to give it a coin every day. The price of forgetting was unspeakable. Those who forgot woke to the sound of heavy, dragging footsteps. An ogre, dressed like an executioner, his face hidden beneath a leather mask, would rise from the tunnel below. His sledgehammer, massive and rusted, could split bone with a single swing. The second rule: never be late on payment. If the rent was overdue, the Sphinx would come. Not the regal, wise creature from myths, but something far more sinister. It crawled from the shadows, its fur matted in gray, its wings torn. It carried a sling blade in its jaws, and it didn't kill, not right away. A family member would be chosen, chained to the wall, limbs removed slowly, methodically, to ensure the survivors never forgot the price of tardiness. The third and most vital rule: no pets. The gremlins, squat and twisted things with sunken faces and hollow eyes, inspected every room. If they found a pet, they made sure it suffered. They would tear the creature apart, piece by piece, leaving the remains in the hall. The landlord hated pets. When he found out, he released the Chimera. Gemini watched the dream unfold, his heart heavy. A family wandered through the rain, the Hannibals. Jill and Richard led their children, Michael and Christine, through the narrow streets. Every hotel was full. The rain fell heavier, soaking their clothes. They were lost, tired, desperate. Michael stumbled. He fell hard, face scraping the cobblestones. He got up with a curse, ready to kick the rock that tripped him. It wasn't a rock. It was a door handle, half buried in mud, and attached to it, a door. The children didn't hesitate. They yanked it open and ran inside. Their parents called after them, but the rain drowned out their voices. They had no choice but to follow. The corridor was lit by flickering candles. An old man waited at the bottom of the stairs. He was thin, with skin like wax paper stretched too tightly over his bones. One eye was milky and dead. $5 a night. No electricity, no water. If you want the sheets clean, wash them yourself, His voice rattled, dry and hollow. Richard reached for his wallet. Empty. He scowled and pulled out his checkbook. The old man tried to speak again, his voice more urgent now, but Richard waved him off. Don't worry, we'll be gone in the morning. The check was signed. The deal was made. The elevator rattled. It groaned, slamming against the walls as it descended. Michael whimpered. Christine grabbed his hand. Jill hesitated. Maybe we shouldn't stay here after all. That man, he was talking about gremlins and— Just a stupid story to scare the kids, Richard interrupted, his voice hard. We're fine. The rooms were numbered in red paint. At least, they hoped it was red paint. The rooms smelled like rot. The sheets were stiff and stained. They covered the bed with their own. At 1 a.m., Michael woke up. Something tapped on the walls. Soft, rhythmic. Tap, tap, tap. The sound of something crawling. Gemini leaned forward, eyes narrowing. The dream had only begun. Michael lay still in the oppressive darkness, his breath shallow. The tapping grew louder, rhythmic and deliberate, as though something beyond the walls was counting down to his doom. Each hollow knock echoed in his chest. His heart pounded. He dared not move. The floorboards groaned beneath the weight of unseen feet, a sound slow and predatory. A wet, gurgling breath wheezed from the corner of the room, and Michael's eyes snapped toward it. He saw nothing, but the sound was too close, too real. Mom! His voice whispered, his voice barely a breath. Michael's candle flickered, casting jagged shadows that danced like writhing specters. When the spider emerged, its grotesque form crowned with a human skull, Gemini's gaze did not falter. He had seen horrors in his eternal vigil, but the cruelty of such a fusion spoke of a mind steeped in malice. The thing's gaping mouth seemed to mock life itself, a hollow scream without a sound. He watched as Michael's scream summoned his father, the man's courage flickering as dimly as the dying flame. The spider's retreat was marked by a shriek that curdled the air, and Gemini felt it ripple through the dream's fabric. The world groaned in protest. He could feel something else stir. When the elevator doors parted to reveal the Sphinx, Gemini felt a pang of recognition. This was no ordinary beast. The eyes, deep and endless, hinted at a will far beyond the landlord's pitiful greed. The declaration of a counterfeit check rang hollow and absurd in the face of such terror. And yet, the words carried weight, a weight that pressed down on the dream itself. The family's frantic knocking led them to salvation, or so they thought. The door that opened was no sanctuary, but a reprieve wrapped in fear. The ogre's pursuit was inexorable, its blows ringing like the bells of some forsaken cathedral. The door's destruction was an inevitability, and still Gemini waited. The landlord, his voice tinged with something between anger and glee, spoke of the guardians from the outside world. Gemini's heart sank. This was no mere nightmare. Something darker had rooted itself here, festering. The landlord was gone, but his words still echoed. He had summoned the Chimera. The air thickened, a grotesque musk of rot and charred flesh swirling as the Chimera's maw dripped with gore. Gemini stood with Terminus, the golden armor of stark contrast to the obsidian expanse beyond. His voice cut through the void, resonant and commanding. Libra, the dream descends into a nightmare. Open the portal, now! From his side, Libra's scales glowed with a silver light, her eyes narrowing in concentration. A jagged tear ripped through reality, a swirling vortex of starlight and shadow, birthing 5 figures into the waking nightmare. Michael stumbled forward first, His leather jacket soaked almost instantly from the heavy Mexican rain. He squinted at the scene.
By the look of things, I bet Cancun's nice this time of year.
Valerie's wings glistened under the downpour, her voice sharp.
We're not here for your wise-ass jokes, Michael. There's a dreamer to save.
Erica adjusted her crimson sorceress robes, her staff crackling with latent energy. Warren, the feline archer, flicked his tail irritably beneath his feathered hat, the rain flattening his fur. Sophia groaned, tugging at her thief's armor.
I just got this gear. It better not rust.
Michael smirked.
Why are you worried? If it rusts, Gemini will replace it.
Her glare could have cut through steel. Before the tension could mount, a sound shattered the air. Deafening screams echoed from beneath the earth. The hotel's graveyard entrance burst open as the Hannibal family poured out, soaking and screaming. The mother dragging the youngest child as Richard fought to pull the other along. The Chimera followed. It didn't fit through the door. It didn't care. Stone, dirt, and bone exploded in all directions as the hulking beast clawed its way out of the earth, unfurling itself like some ancient, forgotten horror. Its lion's head roared with primal rage, the goat head at its side bleeding a wet, gurgling snarl. The serpent tail writhed and hissed, snapping at the air with fangs dripping venom. Michael tilted his head, unfazed.
Well, that's our cue. Or your cue. I'll just sit back and relax if you don't mind.
Warren's ear twitched in annoyance before he leapt and kicked Michael in the shin with surprising force.
Ow! What the hell, Warren?
The cat didn't dignify him with a response. The Chimera broke free, sending a cartwheel of debris skyward. It spotted the family, cornered and helpless against the alley's dead end. It laughed, a guttural broken sound like wet gravel dragged across rusted metal. "Run, little flesh bags. It won't matter. I'll peel the meat from your bones slow enough for you to taste it. Your screams will paint the walls. I'll crack your skulls and drink the marrow while you watch. Your youngest will go last, so they learn how to beg properly." It raised the claw, about to carve the father's head clean from his shoulders.
Hey, ugly!
Michael's voice rang out, smug and cocky.
That's an impressive monologue and all. But if you're gonna eat them, maybe skip the speech. Bad guys always talk too much.
The Chimera's heads whipped around in unison, eyes burning with molten rage. Its breath steamed the rain as it exhaled a feral snarl. "You dare mock me, foolish little insects! You come to die early then. How eager you must be to rot in my stomach." Sophia stepped forward, her daggers glinting.
We're not the ones dying tonight.
The Chimera bared its teeth, all three heads grinning with violent delight. "Let's begin." The rain fell in sheets, a ceaseless curtain from the heavens, as the alleyway became a theater of horrors. Michael stepped forward, his grin unfazed by the Leviathan before them. The Chimera's hulking form loomed, its three grotesque heads snarling in unison. The lion's maw dripped with rancid saliva, the goat's eyes burned with infernal light, and the serpent tail coiled with deadly intent. Michael smirked, calling out to the family huddled in terror.
All right, folks. Time for the adults to play. Get out of the way unless you want an impromptu haircut.
One of the children, a little girl, whimpered. Who are you?" Michael knelt slightly, his voice dripping with mock sincerity.
Think of us as Chimera exterminators.
He glanced at Erica and Sophia, who both shot him a look of exasperation.
What's your name, kid?
Michael asked, trying to soften the fear. "Christine," she said, her voice trembling.
And yours?
He looked at the boy, clutching her hand. Michael, the boy stammered. Michael raised a brow.
Well, that's not going to get confusing.
Valerie cut in, voice stern.
Enough. Get them out of here. Now.
The Chimera lunged to block their escape, but Erica's hand snapped forward, a sphere of flame bursting forth. The fireball collided with the beast, blackening the lion's mane as it bellowed in pain.
Run!
Valerie commanded, and the family fled into the rain-drenched streets. The Chimera's gaze fixed on Erica, its voice a guttural growl. "You'll suffer for that, witch!" Erica scoffed.
You smelled bad enough already. Getting roasted can only help.
Michael leaned back behind the others.
I'll just be moral support. You guys look like you got this covered.
Warren, the feline archer, knocked an arrow and let it fly. It sailed true, striking the lion head's eye with a wet squelch. The Chimera's roar echoed through the valley, shaking the walls. Valerie surged forward, her spear in hand, the rain glimmering off her wings as she became a streak of light. For the Chimera's one remaining eye blazed, an unnatural, sickly light. "Petrus mortem!" It snarled. The light enveloped Valerie. Her body froze mid-stride, armor stiffening, calcifying into stone. She gasped, but the sound died in her throat. The snake lashed forward, its fangs plunging into her neck. Black venom spread through the stone like crawling ink.
Valerie!
Michael's voice broke with alarm. Erica's hand shot upward, a bolt of lightning answering her call. The jagged spear of light struck the Chimera, crackling and illuminating the valley. For a moment, victory seemed within reach, until the beast absorbed the energy, its ruined eye knitting back together. Michael stared at Erica, deadpan.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that was a bad call.
Erica glared daggers at him.
You think you can do better? Be my guest.
Michael shrugged.
I would, but I'm the chosen one. Pretty sure I'm just supposed to watch and look handsome.
The Chimera snarled, the stolen lightning coursing through its frame. It reared back. Electro-cataclysm! A surge of electric fury burst forth, slamming into the Dream Warriors. They were flung like rag dolls, crashing through windows and walls. Valerie's stone armor shattered, her body crumpling to the ground in agony. Sophia, dazed, groaned from the rubble.
Well, at least none of these apartments were occupied.
Erica coughed out a bitter laugh.
Yeah, or we will get sued into oblivion.
Sophia blinked at her, annoyed.
That's not why I said it.
Warren, already upright, padded to Michael's side. His voice was low, feline growl. Lightning heals it. We need a new approach. Michael nodded grimly.
Suggestions? Whiskers?
Warren's eyes narrowed. Starfell barrage. He loosed an arrow skyward, and the clouds above split open. A meteor, burning like a fragment of the sun, hurtled down. It struck the Chimera with a deafening explosion. Flame and smoke erupted, the beast's anguished screams rising with the inferno. Its flesh blistered, charred, and split. The serpent writhed, hissed in agony. The Chimera staggered, but its eyes, all 6 of them, burned with unholy hatred. Death is but the beginning. I will tear down the gates of hell to see you suffer. Michael shook his head slowly, voice dry and steady.
Yeah. For some reason, we get that a lot.
The Chimera's eyes burned with a cruel, piercing light. Twin orbs of malevolent fire that seemed to cut through the very soul. Rain fell in cold, relentless sheets, drumming against the earth like the beating of a war drum, heralding the coming slaughter. From beyond the veil of dreams, Gemini's voice rang out in their minds, a telepathic whisper that carried both urgency and sorrow. Do not meet its gaze. Its eyes can freeze you where you stand, and if you stare too long, you will turn to stone. Michael's voice, strained with rising panic, followed swiftly.
How the hell are we supposed to fight something we can't even look at?
Valerie, resolute despite the tremble in her heart, raised her shield to block the sight of the monstrous beast. The rain clattered against the metal, blending with the furious storm around them. The Chimera laughed, a guttural, malicious sound that reverberated through the alleyways. "It matters not," the creature sneered, voice slithering into their minds like a serpent. "Whether you submit to fear or I steal your minds, you will all yield in the end. It is far harder to fight without your eyes than you realize." The truth of this became evident all too quickly. Warren, bow in hand, grimaced. "How am I supposed to shoot at a target I can't even see?" The rain intensified. The sky darkened to a choking blackness, save for the brief flashes of lightning that illuminated the grotesque form of their foe. They could hear the splatter of water beneath their feet, feel the mud sucking at their boots, but they could not see the monster that stalked them. Valerie, desperation tightening her throat, clung to a half-remembered thought. A hero once used a shield to fight a beast that could turn men to stone. She shifted her shield, tilting it to catch a distorted reflection in the glistening puddles. The Chimera chuckled darkly, the sound vibrating through her bones. "Clever little mouse, it won't save you." Then it vanished. Her heart stopped.
Gemini, what's happening? Where did it go?
The voice of the Zodiac King came again, laced with grim understanding. "It's inevitable now. In this dream, it can vanish entirely." Michael's voice cut in, raw and desperate.
If it's invisible, can it still turn us into stone?
Gemini's response was heavy with regret. "Yes." Valerie's resolve faltered. Panic clawed at her throat. She was their leader, but how could she lead against an enemy they couldn't see? The weight of their lives pressed down on her, suffocating. A growl rumbled through the darkness. Reflexively, she hurled her spear with all her might, but it found nothing, spinning into the void. The Chimera's voice was a low, poisonous hiss. "You will suffer for that failure." A metallic groan filled the air as Valerie's shield split cleanly in two. The halves crashed to the ground with a deafening clang. She froze. Her limbs stiffened. Her breath choked in her throat. Horror dawned in her eyes as her skin grayed and hardened, petrification creeping through her body like a deathly frost. Erica's scream tore through the night. "No!" Flames erupted around her in a fiery tempest, scorching the rain itself. The Chimera moved unseen, but its wrath was felt. Clawed talons slashed through Erica's leg armor, leaving gashes that bled freely. She howled in agony, staggered, and another blow raked at her back. A spray of crimson painting the wet ground. "Erica!" Warren shouted, loosing an arrow that vanished into the storm. He hesitated, afraid of hitting her instead. The Chimera's laughter echoed, mocking and cruel. For a moment, there was only silence. The rain pounded on. Michael's voice was low, steady.
Listen for footsteps. The puddles. I'll hear it coming.
Sophia, thief and scout, nodded sharply, her senses sharpened. Rain splashed. A ripple broke the puddles. She moved with the grace of a shadow, flipping backward just as a claw lashed out where she had stood.
Warren! Now!
The arrows flew in quick succession, guided by Sophia's call. Each found its mark, sinking deep into the Chimera's arm. The beast howled in fury. Blood, dark and thick, spattered the ground. The crimson streaks marked its form, no longer invisible where the gore clung. Erica summoned a massive shard of ice, hurling it with all her remaining strength. It impaled the Chimera through the shoulder, pinning it briefly as blood gushed in torrents. The Chimera laughed through the pain. "Fools, it's not enough." Gemini's voice returned, strained. "It's healing." If it recovers fully, it will vanish again. They struck fast and hard, but too late. The Chimera faded into nothingness once more. Erica gasped, her voice trembling. Her limbs froze, her skin dulled. Her eyes widened with terror as she felt the stone claim her. Michael lunged to catch her, but he arrived too late. She was a statue, her final expression one of agony. Michael's fists clenched. His voice was thick with fury.
No! Damn it, no!
The Chimera's voice oozed with sadistic pleasure. So fragile, these mortal souls. How easily they break. Michael, Sophia, and Warren closed their eyes tightly. The Chimera circled, unseen. You cannot fight blind forever. Its voice slithered into Warren's ear. A roar erupted, deafening, inches from his face. Fear took him. His eyes snapped open. An arrow loosed wildly, shattering a distant window. Claws tore into his flesh. He staggered, bleeding, and tried to flee. No, he whispered. The Chimera's eyes found his. Warren turned to stone. The rain fell heavier now. Silence choked the alley. Only Michael and Sophia remained, two against an unseen terror that knew no mercy. The Chimera laughed once more. Run, little mortals, run, and let me hunt you. Back on Terminus, beneath the eternal twilight sky, the Scorpio King leaned against his chair, his voice low and serpentine. It looks like your warriors have fallen, Gemini, he murmured with a smirk. Even your faith cannot hold back death. Gemini stood resolute, his emerald eyes fierce with an unrelenting fire. His voice, though quiet, carried the weight of centuries. You underestimate them, Scorpio. You don't yet know the strength of a dream warrior's will. The sky seemed to darken further, as if mourning his words. The scene shifted. In the heart of the nightmare, the alley reeked of rain, blood, and fear. Statues of fallen warriors, Valerie, Erica, Warren, stood in twisted, horrified poses. Only Michael and Sophia still drew breath. Michael exhaled sharply, his voice strained.
Looks like it's just us now. Got any bright ideas?
Sophia, her voice trembling, forced a nervous chuckle.
Yeah. Is it too late to call the police?
Michael barked a dry laugh despite himself.
Sure. We'll just tell them there's a 10-foot chimera on the loose, turning people into stone. Happens all the time.
A low, guttural laugh echoed from the shadows, vibrating their very bones. Enough of this pointless bickering. The Chimera's voice slithered through the air, sharp and cruel. Your time ends now. Sophia's heart pounded in her chest. What the hell was she supposed to do? She couldn't even see the creature, couldn't dare to see it. Her body screamed to run, but her legs refused to obey. Michael gripped a rusted pipe lying at his feet. The sound of the Chimera's claws scraping stone sent a spike of terror down his spine. He swung wildly at the noise behind him. The pipe cracked uselessly against the alley wall. He turned instinctively. Fatal mistake. The Chimera's eyes locked onto his. In a heartbeat, his body stiffened, gray stone spreading over his limbs like a cruel, consuming plague. Sophia screamed as Michael's face froze in a final expression of shock and pain. Alone. She backed into the wall, her breath ragged. Her mind raced. If she pressed against the wall, at least the creature couldn't sneak up behind her. Her daggers felt heavy in her hands. Her mind reeled.
I'm dead, I'm dead, I'm dead!
Her gaze fell to the blades. An idea clawed its way back into her mind. A terrible, desperate idea.
This is going to suck,
she whispered bitterly. She screamed as the blades plunged into her eyes. Pain erupted, white-hot, unrelenting agony. She dropped the daggers, hands flying to her face, grasping through the searing fire. Tears of blood streamed down her cheeks. Back on Terminus, the Libra King stepped forward, eyes wide with horror. "She's gone mad!" Gemini's eyes didn't waver. He shook his head slowly, his voice a whisper of admiration. "No, she understands. Without her sight, the Chimera can no longer turn her to stone. She's leveled the battlefield." The Chimera growled, a rare flicker of surprise in its voice. "Foolish girl! You've condemned yourself to suffer!" Sophia's breath came in ragged gasps. Her hands dropped from her ruined eyes. Her arm blades snapped into place with a metallic hiss. Twin steel swords gleamed in the rain, clenched tightly in her trembling fists. Blood still dripped down her face, her voice barely above a snarl.
If you want me,
She spat through the pain.
you're going to have to earn your kill.
The Chimera's voice rumbled, low and venomous, echoing off the endless walls of the labyrinth. "Blind fool," it hissed, each word laced with a growl. "You think you've outwitted me. All you've done is prolong your suffering. When I am finished, the pain of hell will seem a distant, cherished memory of heaven." It lunged, a mass of scales, fur, and muscle hurtling towards Sophia with a monstrous roar. She felt the rush of air, sidestepping just in time. The wind of its swipe brushed her cheek, but her thief's reflexes saved her from the deadly claws. The Chimera lashed out again and again, each blow swifter than the last. Sophia's heart hammered in her chest, her mind attuned to every sound. The splash of its feet in the shallow puddles, the scrape of its claws against the stone, the whiplash hiss of the serpent's tail striking. She moved as if weightless, dodging the strikes with precision. Each miss fueled the beast's fury. Her blades met the Chimera's relentless attacks. The clang of metal rang out in rapid succession, sparks flying as her arm blades took the brunt of the blows. The metal grew hotter with each parry, turning from steel to a near blinding red hue, glowing like iron pulled fresh from the forge. The Chimera's frenzy reached a fever pitch. Strikes rained upon her in a savage blur. Sophia met each one, her muscles screaming, her mind clear. A hiss of steam curled up as her burning blades locked with the beast's jaws. She felt the opening, heard the shift of weight, the clumsy overreach of its monstrous paw. She leapt, twisting in the air. Her body arced backward in a flawless flip, landing behind the creature. Instinct guided her hand. She lashed out, her blade carving through the darkness. A sickening wet snap echoed as the serpent's head fell to the ground, severed. A defeating roar shook the walls. The Chimera spun, its lion head snarling in agony, now blinded by rage. Sophia steadied herself. Blood dripped from her face. Her breaths came in ragged heaves. Her blades crossed in front of her, forming an X. The lion head lunged, and she struck. A swift, clean arc. The lion's head severed, rolling across the stone with a heavy thud. The creature let out one last pitiful screech before its hulking form collapsed. Its invisibility flickered and died, revealing its full, grotesque form before it began to crumble. Pieces of it disintegrated into wisps of nothingness, leaving only silence. A crackling sound filled the air. One by one, the petrified forms of the dream warriors returned to flesh. Michael stumbled forward, shaking his head.
What the hell just happened?
He muttered. Valerie groaned, stretching as her limbs regained life.
Is it dead?
Sophia nodded, feeling her eyesight slowly returning. The wounds that blinded her vanished, the pain evaporating as though it had never been. Her arm blades retracted. Her armor gleamed as if newly forged, free from even a scratch. Erica blinked, her voice barely above a whisper.
Sophia, did you really do all this?
Sophia smirked through the ache of her muscles.
All in a day's work.
Warren laughed, walking up to high-five her. She accepted it, though her hand shook. Michael glanced around, his voice light despite the exhaustion.
Guess all that's left is to find the dreamer.
A shimmer of light opened beside him, forming a swirling portal. From behind a half-crumbled building, a small figure emerged. Young Michael. His widened eyes stared at the portal, then up at the warriors. Is it over? The child asked timidly. The older Michael knelt, ruffling the boy's hair with a grin.
You bet. Now hurry up and wake up. You're gonna be late for school.
Valerie gave the boy a gentle nod. Your world's waiting, kid. Just on the other side. The boy smiled, his eyes shining with gratitude. Thank you. He stepped into the portal, disappearing in a flash of light. The dream warriors stared at the empty spot for a moment before Michael spoke.
So, drinks? On me.
Valerie chuckled softly.
I've got target practice in the morning.
Erica shook her head.
I'm waiting on lab results. Gotta stay sharp.
Warren grinned. Not really a drinker. Michael groaned.
You guys are buzzkills.
Together, they stepped into the portal, leaving the broken dreamscape behind. Back on Terminus, Gemini watched, his heart swelling with joy. His warriors had succeeded. Against all odds, they prevailed. A rare smile broke across his face as he turned to Scorpio. Scorpio scoffed, though a smirk tugged at his lips. They got lucky. Gemini shook his head, still smiling. No, luck had nothing to do with it. The sky above Terminus glimmered, and for the first time in a long while, Gemini felt hope burn within him, a flame that would not die.